Hi, my name is Mike and I'm with Easty. Today we're going to be going over the motor replacement on the SB-2EX side belt case taper. So the tools that we're going to need are a screwdriver, Phillips head, and an M6 Allen wrench. We're going to look at the motors in the back side of the machine. There's going to be a left motor and a right motor. We're going to keep track of which motor and where the junction box covers are at, because the spinning direction is going to matter when we look at the motor itself and then rewire the motor and connect it. We're going to start out by first making sure the unit is disconnected from the power. We're going to take off the junction box cover on the motor itself. There are 4 screws on the motor that we'll have to remove. Be careful of the wiring. Also, there is a rubber gasket on this cover that we're mindful of so we don't have to lose that or drop that. So we'll start by loosening and taking out the 4 screws on junction box cover. Typically, I like to leave one of the last screws I take out on the top side so then it holds it. So we'll take out the first screw here, throw it underneath the bottom, take this one out, remove it all completely. Go to the screw over here. The angle's kind of hard to get at, so you gotta look and see from the top or the bottom. And this last screw, like I said, is on the top, so it's holding that cover in. So I'll hold the bottom of the cover as I take this last screw out, and the cover should come off. Again, there is a little rubber gasket in here that we'll have to watch out for so it doesn't lose. So I'll take this off, the cover will come out, and here's that gasket I was talking about. So once the junction box cover is out, we can look at the wiring inside. And we're doing this before we drop the motor down, so then we don't have too much tension on the wire itself after the motor comes down. So inside the junction box cover, we're mindful of which side we're working on. For this example, we're working on the right side. You can see there's a lot of wires in here, except the wires are numbered. And the numbers correspond to the inside junction box cover and which direction. So because we're on the right side, we're spinning clockwise. And so we can see the numbers 1, 4, 2, and 3. Those numbers correspond to the wires from the motor and the capacitor and the line voltage. So to get a little more leeway here, we'll loosen the grip seal here, pull the motors out. As you can see, there's a blue and a brown wire from the lead motor. The blue wire is a power wire, which will be connected to 1 and 4. On this example, 1 and 4 are connected together on the main line. We'll disconnect the electric connector here from the blue to remember to make sure that we put them back together the same way. I'm going to put this back on the wire to make sure it connects the same way. That way they're together. Next, we're going to look at the brown wire. And this is connected to 2 and then the capacitor. Capacitor is the symbol right here. So number 2 is a capacitor that will disconnect from the brown wire. If you have to replace a capacitor, you can also use this to make sure you connect it right. So again, we'll take out the brown wire here and the wire nut. Again, we'll leave these connected, put the wire nut back on so remember which way they go. And now we have the line voltage disconnected from the motor. Lastly will be the ground screw. I'll take this screw out. There should be a lug on here. We're mindful of the screw itself and have to take it all the way out. Make sure you don't lose the screw. Now, the main line, main power is disconnected. Once you have this disconnected, you can pull this out and through the grip seal. Now we have the motor itself ready to be replaced. We'll have to probably also save this connector so we can take the connector out and set this aside. The new motor will come with the junction box cover and all the wiring as you see here. So for now, we're just going to put this back together. This is a bad motor, so we can keep all the components together and screw this back in and then go to the next step. Once we have the wires disconnected from the motor, we take an M6 wrench and take and loosen 4 bolts that hold the motor to the motor seat. So we'll start with this one here. If you have a long one, you can come down from the top. I'm going to take these 2 off. In the motor, there's going to be a shaft coming out of the motor that goes up into a seat. So we want to be mindful that when we drop this last bolt, the 3rd of the 4th bolts that we're going to loosen and take out, and this last bolt, we want to make sure that we support the bottom of the motor so it doesn't fall. Again, I'll loosen this last bolt here. I'm kind of pushing up with one hand on the motor and loosen in this last one, supporting the motor. It doesn't fall. Once we remove that last one, the motor will fall out and it's free from the motor housing. Once we have the motor out, you can see that there's a spinning direction here because it's the right side. Again, we're going clockwise with it. Notice that there is a little Lovejoy coupling that's attached to the shaft of the motor. So what we'll have to do is loosen this set screw. You can do it about a turn. There's 2 set screws in here, one on the key itself and one off to the side. So loosen these. This should slide up off the shaft. Again, watch out for the key. The new motor should come with a key, and we'll keep this part for the next motor. Once we have the new motor, we'll make sure that we have the right direction. If you look at the machine, again, this is the right side spinning clockwise. We'll take our coupler here, make sure that the shaft and the key way are here. Line the key with the key in the shaft. And then these will sit flush, meaning that this surface is the same as this surface. Kind of feel with my hands. Tighten the set screw on the side here. Then tighten the second set screw here. Make sure that that coupling stays on the shaft. Now we have the coupler on the shaft motor, and the junction box is the front because this is the right side spinning clockwise. We're going to want to make sure that the orientation of the shaft, and there's 2 teeth here, match with the mating side in the bell housing and the motor mount. And so might have to spin the belt a little bit with your hand to make sure that the other opposing teeth line up in the slot when you push it up. So I've looked underneath to make sure the teeth match up. I'm going to put it up in here in the center. It's going to be a little bit snug at first, but once we find that spot, I'll get it and I'll click up in. We know it's secured in there. We're going to support the bottom to hold it in place. Put one of the screws in here, tighten it by hand to hold this motor mount up. And now I can continue to replace the other 4 screws here. And as you can see, I'm kind of just making sure that they're hand tight for now. So that way we don't tighten them up right away. We'll do that at the end. Last one here. So once we have them all hand tight, come back with the tool, M6 here, and then tighten and go around and tighten the screws. Kind of work my way around. One side, make sure it's tight, then I'll come back around just a second time, just to double check to make sure everything is tight. Once the motor is secure on the motor mount, then we'll go back and rewire the motor and feed the wire in and do the motor connections. Once you have the new motor, We'll take off the junction box cover, and again, this is what it's going to look like inside. We're going to take the grip seal that we had here, install it back in the side of the motor. I'm going to get a wrench to tighten this to make sure it's secure. Hold the inside, tighten the outside. Now it's secure. Take the main line, thread it back through the grip seal here. Gotta make sure this is loose. Feed it into the electrical box. Now we can see that these are here. Make sure the wires are straight. We'll take the ground screw here. First connect this back into the motor itself. Once that's secure and tight, and again we'll look at the two lines coming in. Straighten out any wires that need to be straightened out. And refer back to the motor connection cover, which side we're on. For this example, we're on the right side of the machine, and so we want the motor to spin clockwise. So I'm going to look for wire number 1 and 4 and connect it with blue. So when we connect the wires, make sure they're straight first. We have 3 wires that we want to connect into one wire nut. So what I'm going to do is hold the insulation, all 3 wires, and then twist them. Clockwise rotation, and then put the wire nut on. Once the wire nut's on secure, I'm going to give each wire a pull to make sure that it's tight. If you're not comfortable doing electrical work, please consult an electrician. Next up, we're going to do the brown line wire. Again, this is the second one down here is a capacitor, and number 2 and number 3. So the brown wire is going to go to number 2 and the capacitor. We're going to have the 3 wires here. Twist the wire nut on. Make sure it's tight. Give each wire a pull. Make sure nothing comes out. And the last one is going to be number 2 and 3, or number 3 and the red wire for the capacitor. So they're going to tighten this again. Make sure it's tight. Pull the wires. It's good. Now we have the wire connection made. And we can reference back to the cover itself to make sure they're correct. And then we could put the wires on the top and the capacitor on the bottom here. Put it back in the junction box. Once the wire's in the junction box, we can put the cover back on. And there's a little gasket in here. We'll make sure that's seated in the cover itself. And we'll place the junction box cover back on the motor. Start with the top screw here. Get it started. Make sure all the wires are inside the junction box. The gasket's where it's supposed to be. So that way you're not pinching any wires. First one started. Second one started here. Now I can tighten this last one and go back around and tighten the remaining screws. I'll go back one more time just to make sure everything's tight. The wires got pinched, the gasket's in there, and then we can tighten the grip seal. This grip seal, when we tighten, it's going to make sure that the wire stays snug, doesn't pull out. So if that's tight, good to go. Once we have the new motor installed and wired, we're going to plug the machine back in and then push start to make sure that the belt is turning in the right direction and everything is working properly. You can see the belt's working here and both are moving in. Thanks for watching the motor replacement on the SB-2EX. If you have any other questions or look for parts, please visit our website at easty.com. Thank you.